Yeah, I talked to you guys. We met at the first meeting. She met Josh. I'm gonna do something. I'm bringing around Josh. Yes, I'd like to go around my husband.
Okay. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Elena. I'm one of the ambassadors for Projector Global Community. Today we are hosting this event together with our friends from Fresh and Jakub. So, a little bit of context of who we are. Projector started as the online institute in Ukraine and was created with the thought in mind that quality education should be available for anyone. And so now it has grown into Projector Global Community with all kind of events all around the world. And today, as you guys know, we talk a little bit more about AI, and not only kind of the like a real practical stuff that you can use on Monday morning or in our case Thursday morning. So with that, I'm giving the floor to Jakub and let him introduce our panelists today. Enjoy. Also, just a note, if you're ever interested in speaking here or joining us as an ambassador, please find me or Anna after the event. And let's talk. Okay, enjoy.
Thank you, Elena, for the introduction. Hello, everyone, and welcome. So I'm Jakub, and I've been doing design for 27 years now. I know it's terrible, but no, I love it. I run this studio. It's a UX and product design studio in Czech Republic. It's 50 people, mostly designers, and we've been really lucky to work with some of the most interesting companies in the world, like US pharma companies, European banks, or telco operators. And the times we are living in right now are really exciting for a designer and also a bit scary. I would say I'm riding these waves when sometimes I feel that it's the best time to be a designer, and sometimes I wonder whether my company will exist in a few years. So it's a roller coaster. But I think there is a lot of noise on the social media these days. If you follow those AI influencers, you probably know that if you are not running 20 agents in every given moment, then you are dead or whatever. I don't believe that. And so we thought that it might be a good idea to host a meetup where we'll talk about practical stuff, how you can use AI, and no bullshit, no clickbaits, just some practical advice and point of view. So I think we have great guests here tonight to do that. I'll introduce them and then also let them tell us more about themselves. So our first guest is Donny D'Amato. Hi, Donny. Hi. Donny is a design system architect, and he runs his design systems consultancy called DS House. He's actually writing a book. The name is in French, so I won't try to...
Mise en mots.
Yeah, thank you. And so I think it will be really interesting. Please welcome Donny. second guest is Dima Kirillov. Dima works as design technologist at Amazon, and he specializes in AI, augmented reality, and he's actually currently building HyperTool, a platform that unlocks visual creative coding for designers. That sounds really exciting, so I'm curious to hear more about that. So yeah, thank you, Dima, for coming. Please welcome Dima. And our third guest is Hank Su, who spent a decade in various design and design leadership roles, including at Boston Dynamics or Bloomberg. And Hank also recently ran a hiring consultancy, which I think can bring an interesting perspective to our discussion. So yeah, and I enjoy following Hank's thoughts on LinkedIn. I recommend that. It's cool. So please welcome Hank. Yeah. So Donnie, Dima, Hank, I would love each of you to give us just a bit more context about your current day-to-day. What does a typical week actually looks like right now for you? And sorry, we have just 2 mics, so I'll keep mine, and guys, you don't need to pass it over. So yeah, Danny, what's how is it with you?
It's good with me. Before I continue, I just want to let the room know that we are live streaming and recording. By my camera up there, you can look for me on YouTube, Donnie D'Amato. We're actually doing it. I don't know if it's choppy. It is art studio Wi-Fi, so we have no idea what's happening. But yeah, my day-to-day, when it comes to, it was specifically for AI, just in general, we're talking about.
Oh, you can do both.
Okay, right. So my day-to-day ends up being, because I'm more on the development side for my day job, and then I speak design language basically for blog posts and articles and explorations and things like that I do on my free time. But my day job is very focused on using AI tools in the job. So obviously using all those agents, using Cursor, and in fact, I mean the thing that I'm seeing just in the general situation is a lot more people in those tools as opposed to regular design tools. So, but yeah, that's similar for me as well. It's just being in having a co-pilot, not necessarily a co-pilot, just having a co-pilot in general that you are bouncing things off of, ideas off of approaches off of. That's happening in the day. And then at night, I'm exploring possibilities, right? So I do have my own MCP server that you can hit that answers questions that I've written about on my blog, my personal site, my own design system. All of that stuff is inside the MCP that I wrote. And that's really just to become relevant in this world, right? Where everyone's asking what is your aptitude with AI these days. It is something that companies are actually putting in their charts about, okay, this candidate, how they're doing. So having those side projects, just the exploration is key. So I'm trying to stay on top of those things too. So I think that's the day for me.
Yeah, that's cool. I hope we'll dig deeper into your MCP server. Yeah, Dima, please go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, guys. Me as a design technologist at Amazon, Innovation Lab, and at the same time being the part of the small team, 5 building a small product, a big one, it's a product for a small team. I literally can see the range of the production, digital production workflows on both sides, and it really different from on that scale. But what's common between those two is how the communication happening between non-technical and technical people right now, and it's literally get linked 180 right now, and then designers who never did, who was afraid to start coding now doing the code, and the coders can deliver the really high fidelity designs on their own, so ideas are not stale. And me as a design technologist are on the middle of this communication process, and using my day-to-day job is code not focused, but honestly, I spent in this about the focused work. I spent 80% in the chat and deciding what not to build rather than to build. Um, Obviously, we have internal tools in Amazon and external tools for development, but my job is to make this transition from the ideation process of creatives and final execution be as smooth as possible and enable all those parts to take place in that process with the common ground and clear way to deliver that final control for the large movement. And then I will have time to speak more on that tool and build it now. Yeah, it's day-to-day.
Perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to ask, is the sound good? Do we? Yeah. Everyone's hearing well. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So, Hank, please.
I'm unemployed, so I don't do a whole lot. Those folks do a lot cooler stuff than I do. Once I walk the dogs, and I do try out all the AI tools. I try to do as much as I can with my portfolio right now. I already spend about 8-10 hours per day working on it, which is not really healthy, but that's just how my brain works right now. So yeah, not too really exciting, just work.
Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, in like really simplistic way. Like sometimes you're just doing something and it's getting painful. And you're like, oh, I'm good.
What's the investors?
Yeah, I know. There's some trauma there, I'm sure.
Okay, but so let's get into this. I wonder, what does like building a digital product with AI mean in your everyday work right now? I know, Hank, that you posted, I think today, a post about all the different tools you tried. So yeah, if you could.
Yeah, I think, if you're not working at a company right now, it's really interesting how you can post the tools because there is no method to it, really. No one's really telling you how to use these tools or the way to best make something, best practices. There's none of that. So there's a lot more experimentation going on. And for me, I have a pretty good sense from recruiting what kind of portfolios hiring managers are looking for. And incidentally, the interesting thing is that like in the last 10, 15 years with designers, we've been mostly making the same kinds of portfolios, like the case study with the process and showing exactly the kind of personalization we did, the research we did, card sorting, etc. And we're kind of moving away from that. Now people are really looking for one-of-a-kind portfolios that are really different. If you see the recent post by the senior manager at Apple who put out a Notion doc and showed the 60 top portfolios that get you hired at a bank company, like I find that really problematic in some ways because you're unifying exactly what kind of portfolios is good, and more importantly, what is a good or hireable designer. But one thing you can see from that is, indisputable is every single portfolio there is different. There is no unifying pattern anymore. So with that in mind, I think that's really interesting about vibe coding tools is that you almost have to do something different with it because the outcomes are very different than what you would expect from a normal portfolio.
Thank you. Thank you. Dima, what's building a digital product with AI mean in your everyday work? So for you, I guess you are building your product and then you are also doing this creative work at Amazon. So yeah, maybe you can talk about both.
Yeah, and it's actually two different directions to go down the pipe because in the Amazon, we're building the internal tool that I think I want to share is that we're building the common canvas as an agent which is aware of every creative campaign we've been built before within the Brand Innovation Lab, and now all this story, all the technical abilities of the Amazon Canvas, and this is a basically agent where you can chat, you can have generative images, videos, ideations, and also ask him about what's possible to do. So the creatives no longer have this like long loop of communication with the technicals. If we are able to do something, or how hard the to develop, and the engineers can deliver this in a very rapid time frame. The tool which enables the creative to use that. Deliver their ideas. So with a small team, what happened, what the dynamic is that we're working professionals, and we don't really have time to focus on this on the development. But what we do, we make this in a multiple way form. So we're a team of 5, and each of us push the product development further by steps, and we keep pushing the product synchronously, simultaneously.
Yeah. So you are working on that tool, or do you already use it?
So we as a team from the creative technical, creative engineering, creative field, we made this tool first of all for ourselves, but also the tool is basically an instrument for designers who never touched the creative coding before, but want to create the visual systems for the brands. It's a text to code to visual instrument. Basically, Figma main and Dutch designer and ChatGPT Canvas in the same model, where you can share the final tool with your end customer. You can embed it into the hero page. You can have an image treatment tool where you tweak it, where you update it with just human text, and on the hood is text to the code to the visual. So it's a new approach in terms of it's a design challenge, because before there was a constant battle of what's more important, design or the architecture. Now the process is just constant loop of iterations. When the engineer can come up with a whole ecosystem, whole design, and then the design system is built in the reverse. So you have the already made tool, then you can tailor the design pieces and design the system backwards. So this is.
Thank you, Danny. Should I repeat? The question stays the same. So, building a digital product with AI, what does that mean to you, like right now?
Sure. So I work with the design systems angle, right? So the products, if we think of design systems being a product, that's the thing that I'm working on in terms of how AI evolves to the design system. So traditionally, a design system has been a collection of agreements. That's what a design system is. I mean, there's artifacts and things like that come out of it, but effectively, the design system is codifying all the agreements that your organization has, right? So design tokens, what's the name of it, what's the value of it, the components that you're using, all that stuff is just agreements that are sitting inside the organization. Well, traditionally, that's been a very manual process, right? We're going to go ahead and try to figure out what this is. Oh, we got to talk to this person over here, talk to that person over there. Then you got to fight about what color the button is. All that stuff that's going on is very boring, right? It's just bureaucracy, right? It's not the design. So what we would like to see, and what I'd like to work on effectively, is the ability to kind of streamline all of that, right? Because what we're seeing very clearly right now is that we've known for a long time is that people don't read documentation, right? Because that's what traditionally design systems have been, it's just documentation. Let me read the docs. Oh yes, okay, here, I'm gonna spend time out of my day, out of a system that I'm not normally in, right? Because we're sitting in Figma or sitting in VS Code. That's where we've been. But now I gotta visit some other documentation site, figure out from somebody's IA about what they thought they should be, showing as opposed to what I need right now, and wasting time. Meanwhile, this is why we see so many people, going to the dark corners of their hardware, making their own little buttons because they can't be bothered with the design system. They don't know how it works. But now, with people actually chatting with AI and using it as a co-pilot and what have you, we can effectively do a prompt injection, so to speak, where we're effectively injecting the design system rules inside of their prompts so that all they get is stuff that's aligned with the system, right? So no longer is it just random tailwind that comes out of this thing. Now we're actually allowing the rules that are supposed to be in the system such that you are following the guidelines. And if something needs to be changed at a large level, then you can also use the overarching AI systems to then co-locate everything that's going on in the ecosystem, right? You can look at all the files and say, okay, there's 26 blue buttons and 2 yellow buttons, right? Well, clearly we should be using the blue button, and we can identify the yellow buttons and say, hey, what are these actually used for? Right? We can dig into those things. We have full visibility now, right, when we have everything connected. So that's the stuff that I'm focusing on now. It's not designed to look just components any longer. It really is trying to get more of the overarching visibility of what's happening, right? And trying to get it so that you don't really notice that you're aligning to a system. It's just happening for you. So that's one of the larger pieces that I'm thinking about now. But there's another piece that I'm very close to as well. You mentioned Mise-en Mode. So Mise-en Mode is an approach that deals with UI theming, right? And it's a very fancy name for the ability to do a scoped mode. So you can imagine having a light colored page and a dark colored footer. Traditionally, what you end up having is like inverted tokens, like background inverse and then button inverse and blah blah blah. The problem with that is that it explodes the number of tokens that you'll end up having in that footer. You'll need a token for every single little thing down there. That's exactly the same as it is on top. Instead of having those tokens, you can just effectively treat the footer of the page as a dark mode, and then you have the exact same tokens at the top and the bottom. You have surface background color is light in this area, but surface background color is dark in this area. So that means you can have the exact same number of tokens. In my case, you can actually reduce it down to less than 3 dozen, which should sound very interesting to you. You probably have hundreds of tokens that you're dealing with right now. But you can express any interface roughly with about 36 tokens. But from there, the combinatorics of trying to get everything that you want to express in a page, that's what explodes. So what you end up potentially supporting is a concept like Home Depot dark critical in China, right? That's a thing that you can express because there's someone in China trying to find something at Home Depot, but it's not there right now, so it's a critical state. So that particular state could exist, right? I don't know, Josh, you do Home Depot in China, but Hank's looking at me like, I don't think so. So just hypothetically. So that combinatorics of what that actually ends up being, no designer is curating what that is. It's too specific. Well, what if we can just figure it out from known information? I have this idea of called a large expression model, which effectively says I have all the expressions inside of context, inside of this what will be LLM, but LEM, and I can determine and say, I know what dark is. I can figure out what dark is supposed to be, and I can serve a version of Home Depot Dark Critical and Chinese to the specific person so that it is expressed properly. Again, with the number of combinatorics that could potentially happen there, it's not for any one person to do, but for AI, tweaking some amounts of influence based on the user and the brand website. That's what's really interesting to me. I talk about that as a part of the book.
Okay, that sounds cool. Maybe a quick follow-up question. So, does the LLM that produces every time the same result, or?
We'd like to hope so. Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible that it's not because it learns a better result.
Okay.
Right? That's entirely possible as well. The more that we get good feedback about the result that's provided, then maybe it provides a good result. I also talk about in the book the idea of a new role called a learned UI analyst. The idea behind that is it basically says, we need to bring a little bit more of the brand in here. We need to bring a little bit less of the critical state in here because it's conflicting, right? To imagine like Target in critical states, like you could see the conflict immediately. So having someone that's able to tweak the knobs but not necessarily curate the color directly, I think that's going to be really interesting.
So it goes towards more dynamic interfaces.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hank, you mentioned you are working a lot on the portfolio, and my next question for you is to walk us through a recent project where AI changed how you work. So I guess your process of building the portfolio also changed compared to, 2 or 3 years ago, how you would approach it. So can you maybe talk about what tools do you use, how do you approach it these days?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference for me is not necessarily AI tooling, it's actually the fact that I did recruit for the last 3 years. And that opened my eyes, because previously as a designer, I thought I knew what recruiters were looking for, what hiring managers were looking for. And the funny thing is, as a designer, you often say that, oh, Josh, we're not the users, but for whatever reason, when it comes to job applications and hiring, we feel like we know everything. So I realized I was making a ton of mistakes, and that's helped me see things in a very different light. In terms of the way tooling works differently now, I haven't really. So if you're out of work for 3 years, if you haven't done design for 3 years, you basically have to redo your portfolio or your case studies at this point. And not only are you redoing it in terms of how you tell the story, but you also have to redo the screens and UI entirely because there's a cultural concept in design. If you look at somebody's design work or portfolio, you can tell when they worked on this project. Either through the background UI, like the way the iPhone is shaped, the iconography, just the design style changes year over year. So if somebody sees something a little bit different or old, it makes your portfolio look a little bit outdated, which is not a good thing right now, considering how competitive the market is. So for me, it's I have to redo the work itself. I don't just have to redo the way I tell the story or the case studies. I have to remake the UI, redo that. And I think what's a lot simpler nowadays is you can generate what you want, right? I think we all know this. So I won't get too deep into it, but it's changed in terms of how much time I spent on things. Previously, I definitely have spent way more time on creating the assets itself. Nowadays, I'm really focusing on the storytelling. And I realized that's also a really important thing for hiring managers and recruiters. You need to have the right angle, you need to understand what they're looking for, and you need to prioritize signals. So it's not just telling a good story, having a good narrative. You need to understand how your signals and send them out, which I would define as something that people can grok or understand or perceive in the first 5 to 30 seconds of the portfolio. So if you can emphasize that and hone in on it, you have a much better chance of getting a call back. So I don't think AI tooling is necessarily a huge differentiator. I think it speeds things up quite a bit here and there. But the other biggest difference is that the expectations are quite different now as well. So again, with how things feel outdated, I think one of the biggest difference right now is a portfolio made prior to AI tooling become very good is much more standard and much more template, much more reliant on tools like Framer and Squarespace and so on. nowadays, I think the expectation is leaning toward, can you show me a working problem, working prototype that I can actually explore that is live? And can't really do that and not be on tool easily, at least, right? So you do need to dig into things like cursor or anti-gravity, as pattern stick, whatever it is, and make things that people can really explore. So it's flipping the storytelling in a different way, away from a straightforward single path narrative over to here's the product that I built, please check it out, tell me what you think about it.
Thank you. Thank you. So maybe I'll ask Dima. Could you walk us through a recent project? I guess, it's up to you whether it's at Amazon or your tool, and how the work you engaged with AI.
Yeah, I'd like to first show a little Carol Kitchen, Amazon, where the strategy we're heavily onboarded and deeply integrated with the flow. So having this MCP service connected to the Figma and then to the flow enables the designers to do with the website, which is most popular way of the ad formats on Amazon, canvas. So the designers now are able to build those websites with no engineering work involved on the lower tiers brands, and then engineering work is involved into enabling and extending this to the set on the webflow. So this process gets much faster and much more efficient, and again, the designers get much more technically savvy, much more empathy and understanding of how the whole ecosystem works. So this gap is much less and less over the time, which I like a lot. And with the small team, we're working every day all together as the same brain, same chip. So it's even while we're developing the chat in our interface. For example, we have the system prompt, which heavily affects the result which we have on the final canvas. So instead of talking to engineers, we show interface where designer can make the system prompt and finally affect the output. So everyone have the real touch to the product, which really creates this empathy in the whole creative process between the participants. That's what I like.
One follow-up question. How do you make sure that the designers learn these new tools? Do you do some trainings, or you just give them the tool and tell them, hey, try it? How do you approach this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's constant workshop sessions and to the point of the documentation. A couple of years ago, when I just started here, I was thinking that the best case for the AI to solve is documentation search, because it's a really big point across the industry, and it's very digested information, very narrowed down. Is giving them much easier entrance, barrier in entrance for the people. So yeah, not just building the tool, but just building the ecosystem where people can read and know what exactly and how they can do the search, perform certain tasks. So documentation is not just always the rules, is the challenge itself. And the challenge the designers are focusing on now in this AI first tools. I call it AI UI. So the interface and customer experience with the AI tools are not the same as they used to be. before, and it's a great challenge how you navigate the person to use this, and basically avoid any workshop time.
I work a lot with Hot Code, and what I like about the tool is it can literally teach you stuff. If you ask it, if you read what it says, and it can basically like guide you through many things and you can learn many things. So
This is a fantastic point. We have this button inside. Do we need to show what the chat is thinking and what he's doing right now, and we work on should we show it to person or not, and this have the different approaches. And some people the valid argument that I want to learn what this chat is doing so I can communicate with him much better this time, because like the way you communicate obviously and the terms and the specific terms you use are very important to the final word. And yeah, it's a lot to be to get involved. Yeah, you are learning through chats.
thank you. Karen, do you want to add something to that, or it felt like you want to follow up on that? No. Okay. Can you tell us more about that MCP server you built? Because you probably already answered the question about how your work changed with AI. Because I feel like me personally, I feel like design systems. There is the biggest opportunity right now to automate a lot of stuff, to get a lot of manual work out of the equation. So yeah, I'm interested in that MCP server, how you build it, with what tools.
That was my code, 100%.
Okay.
You don't know what else going in there. Yeah, there's really nothing in there, and I will say that I actually had quite a bit of difficulty, and I say this specifically because. I'm used to working on the web, designing, engineering, etc. Working on the web for 25 years now. I've been doing it from the late 90s. So I've seen it grow. I've seen the wild west of it and how it's settled. Now we have good best practices and standards. And seeing AI and us trying to figure out the best practices and standards makes me uncomfortable because there are none. Right? They change every single week. It's like Agent Skills 2.0 that just released like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, crap, we're going to change everything now because of this new standard. So I get frustrated a little bit when building the MCP server because there are no standards. How do I make it discoverable? Right? Like that's one of the biggest things that I was trying to figure out when I was building it last year. Like, how do they know that I have an MCP? Right? These LLMs, right? So trying to figure out what the standard for that was just like not available. So yeah, that's one of the things that in terms of like the MCP work that I did. Again, it was just really vibe coded and trying to align with standards. Whatever standards have existed, look at this, look at that. What are people doing here? What are people doing there? Yeah, it was a challenge overall. I think it's still a good exercise if you have the cycles to do so. Admittedly, the whole thing is effectively hosted for free on Netlify for itself. So it's a Netlify serverless function, just sits in there and you can ping it with remote access. The other thing is I think I'm also specifically working on is I know that a lot of stuff in the AI space is installable. Right? So you install the MCP, install the skill, you put it locally on your machine. And I don't personally like installing things on my machine if I don't need to. I'd much rather remote to something, especially if I own it, because security and privacy understand. But if I own the thing, and then I want to put it somewhere else, so that if my computer crashes, like I always have it, it's always up in the cloud somewhere. We hope, right, Cloudflare. But that's what I think about is effectively, trying to exercise some of this stuff in here. I think making your own MCP is a good exercise. I think. Another exercise that's interesting if you're working with skills is optimizing the skills. So if you're working with skills, what skills are, they're basically markdown files that explain different things that a thing can do or can't do. But it's very possible that you end up making a huge file just like this is everything I want to do. And that ends up getting loaded into context. And that context can be really expensive, loading all that stuff. So one of the ways to optimize that is just is to effectively allow it to be linked to almost like web pages, where you have an index page, and that index page then sends you out to a place that like has more interesting. It's almost like we're building the web again. It's crazy, actually. So it's interesting how everything is coming around again. But yeah, that's the NCP part of it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. So when it comes to building products and stuff like that, one of my first introductions to AI was me trying to figure out how to make a Tailwind plugin. I don't know if anyone here has actually tried to make a Tailwind plugin, but holy shit, you can't. There's no docs. There's no docs on making the Tailwind plugin. It's incredible, right? So I was tasked to do this, and I'm like, well, okay, how am I supposed to do this? I'm asking AI for 2 weeks, because we had bad models back then, but for 2 weeks to make this Tailwind plugin. Made it, right? So if there's no docs, how am I supposed to potential? How do we know how the Tailwind plugin people were making Tailwind? It's not committed. So that was one of my first things. So I think the largest thing that I'm seeing in terms of what I do on a regular basis is specifically, again, that co-pilot back and forth. The last thing I'll mention is that I do work for FIT as an educator and a professor there. And it's very interesting seeing the younger generation and their, especially artists, writers, and their reactions to this, because they're very averse to AI. And they don't like the scheme of stuff, with economic difficulties and all that kind of stuff. It's very interesting about us all embracing it, and they're like running from the hills from it. This whole thing. It's hard to tell them, like, it's one thing to have this like what's it called, visual feeling about what AI is doing. There's another thing to be alive about it, because it's here.
That's kind of interesting, because I read a post by Guillermo Morau. He's the founder of Vercel, and it was a discussion about juniors versus seniors using AI, and like for junior people, the market is tough right now. It's said like, hey, we don't need junior people because AI will do that thing, which that's of course not like, it can't be like that. But Guillermo actually mentioned that he thinks that young people are like better positioned to master AI and learn new patterns compared to people like me who are 27 years in the industry, 26 maybe, I don't know. But I have, I learned a lot of things. I need to unlearn some stuff. So that's interesting that maybe the young generation can, have also faced these challenges. So yeah, thank you. I would like to ask, and I'll start with Hank, so we'll go in circles like this. About maybe your AI tool stack right now. What tools do you use? If you have any favorite ones, maybe Hank, I know you experimented with a lot of them, so maybe if you can mention some.
Yeah, I'm pretty. I definitely don't use really advanced tools like Tommy does. I use whatever's the cheapest because I use it so much, and like I started with Cursor, and Cursor was very generous several months ago, and they tightened it up a little bit. So I switched over to Gravity, which is made by Google, and I think it's subsidizing the shit out of it because I have not hit my limit. $20 a month. I cannot bring myself to spend $200. $200 for the 12 plan. I'm like, that is insane. That is like, I'd rather spend all my money on Netflix and Apple TV and HBO and everything else. But okay, so to answer your question, I think all the tools are using the same LLMs. The output quality is relatively the same. They're all using Claude, Opus, and Gemini Pro. I don't know why I did this. I built identical apps using 2 different tools because this is important time, but the output is pretty much the same. The real difference is their capabilities, like what is a wrapper able to do. And for example, Replit can let you spin up a backend and also the database and post it for you all in like 1 or 2 clicks, which is very convenient. But Replit also costs, I would say, 10 times more. That's my guess. Like they hide the true like mileage you get from it. They say here's $20 per month, and here's what the token costs roughly speaking. But every month that limit changes, and I think it's different for everyone. It's my guess. So you never really know until one day you hit the limit. But in my anecdotal experience, I feel like the constant block even most convenient one. And then there are stuff like Magic Patterns, which is very easy to use. So typically, if you're very new to AI tooling, but you're used to Figma, you do not code, you don't want to use an IDE or it's a development environment, interactive development environment. It's like using VS Code or Cursor. I can see how that's a little bit challenging for a wall designer. So use Magic Pattern, use Figma to kind of get going with it. And then eventually you want to switch to that, because I have noticed that hiring managers are asking people what tools to use. And there is some bias in there where they assume that if you use stuff like VS Code and Cloud Code and Cursor and Anti-Gravity, you're more advanced as an AI user versus something like Figma or Magic Patterns, which I don't think is true, because these tools are actually all very, very deep. They all have very different use cases. So, you might want to be cognizant of that. And, of course, with Figma Make, you have the advantage to like port Figma file over, but Cloud Code has kind of circumvented that a little bit recently. So my point is that it really doesn't matter what tools you use, especially if you're starting out. In the beginning, just pick any fucking tool. Just pick one, use it. They all have like free stuff that comes with it. There's also Kilo code, Kilo, Kilo, which is totally free. But you need to use like one of the second generation Chinese open source models, which are pretty decent. I know people like Chuckle, like China's actually catching up really well when it comes to open models, because they copy, they stole from the other fees, right? And Anthropic is like bitching about it, like, oh, they stole from us. Like, yeah, well, you stole from all the other authors and artists, right? So, yeah, start using different tools, and then as you use it, you'll hit the limits. You start to see like what's not working for you, what you need, and then you pick the next tool. The other thing is also all the tools cost $20 per month. They all have GitHub integration, so it's very easy to switch over. I actually switched between different tools for the same project because they all have a little advantage. You get local files with the IDEs, whereas Figma Make, they kind of hide that. So it's annoying, but yeah, so it doesn't really matter. Just use something, and as you use it, you realize like what's working for you and stuff.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And regarding the costs, I heard this interview with the guy who created Cloud Code at Anthropic, and he said that some of the engineers at Anthropic spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars in tokens every month, which
That's I feel like they're just doing stupid shit. They're just
that's like
Let me put this as bird hat.
yeah, like they have unlimited tokens. Like it's like you get a free pizza for life. You're just gonna eat. Like you don't even want pizza.
yeah, so he just said that. I don't know. Yeah, but okay. So Dima, what tools do you use? How does your tool stack looks like these days?
Right. So with this Cloud Call and agent thing, I personally don't feel it's not comfortable to give them all access to the whole file systems. So yeah, so I stick to the cursor with actually I think the best model is Anthropic Opus 4.6 right now. It's not really minus and perfectly needs to be done. I use some NPC servers with the Figma, so I can link whatever I need to do from the Figma for the cursor, and then have my final build. In our setup, obviously, we publish everything for the Vercel, and it's incredibly fast and helpful. So Yeah, the cursor my go-to tool. Also for the visual, the generative AI visuals and videos, I really enjoy Crea AI. They have all the list of dimensional models you need, and they use them to generate the loop videos and this coefficient and green screen background and how you ever have the shot. But it was quite cool to have a thing. And yeah, like recently I used the hybrid tool to make the things right away, right there, and share it instantly. Publish and share it with whoever need to use that. And so yeah, that's pretty much my step. I saw a couple cool. I also use the Mesh 3D for the 3D text to the 3D generator assets. That gets really exciting and cool right now. And yeah, so I saw approaches the Cloud Code, and you basically orchestrate every tool you have to manually adjust, like even create the 3D models within the Blender environment with text or code, and give you the rest of the publish it yourself. Yeah, but it's pretty much that.
Thank you. Johnny, what's your thing?
Oh goodness. A whole bunch of stuff. I mean, my daily driver is definitely Claude. So I do pay for Claude personally. But past that, I'm using free stuff all over the place. I use free Gemini, I use free ChatGPT sometimes. So that happens regularly for me. Actually, for my blog, which looks like the O'Reilly books for like development, has like the animal drawings on them. That's all Adobe Firefly. So I've used Adobe Firefly for years, making those drawings on there for the blog. So that's a separate thing. And in fact, speaking of imagery, a friend of mine actually showed me FreePic, which is a stock imagery site. They actually have a node-based editor for making new images. And the interesting thing about node-based editing, if you're using those tools, is the ability to have parts of the prompt and parts of the artifacts affect new artifacts down the line. So, as an example, if you're making a thumbnail for a video or something of that nature, you could effectively bring that video in as an input. You can bring in the transcript as an input, and you can even tell the prompt to generate a prompt that's even better than what you could ever potentially make, which is a hack for normally if you were prompting. Always ask it to make a prompt for you, then send that prompt through. But yeah, being able to have a workflow that's visual, right? Because a lot of these chats are not really visual as much as it's a conversation. So now when they're able to make this node-based visual editing that says do this, do this, do this, do this, and really tweak these pieces in time, is actually very powerful as a workflow. So I really like tools that are able to do that. But additionally, I did try out many of the tools that are just prompted design stuff. In fact, I did a Wireframe episode. Wireframe is my talk show, by the way. It's at wireframe.ds.house. I do a live show at 5 p.m. weekdays. I'll have 2 interviews this week, actually, Thursday and Friday. But anyway, on one of the shows, I went through about 5 or 6 tools, gave them the exact same prompt. And it was like, okay, what do you got? Right? And this was months ago, and I'll say that the results were not great, but to Peng's point, they were all very similar. Right? So they're all seeing all the same models that are happening. I actually did try it again, I think last week or the week before, and I will say, after all the stuff that I looked at, it looked like Fig the Big actually came out on top of them, and the rest of them I was actually surprised. And again, this is a matter of, again, text to image. So I'm not starting with anything. I'm not even starting with a design system. I'm basically saying, do this with this one prompt and see what happens. Right, hands off the wheel. So, which is a leaps and bounds from when I first saw Figma's AI generation 2 years ago, which was an absolute disaster. Because it was like setting up the same like weather app every time over and over again. But yeah, I will say that it did a lot better this time. But I think that's generally my stack, other than connecting the random bit CPUs and stuff. I think that's it.
I'm glad you mentioned FreePick. We use it a lot at our studio. And if you are interested in these node-based editing tools, I recommend Comfy UI. It's like a more advanced version of what FreePick has. And we've used it to build some internal tools for a few banks in Czech Republic. And it's really interesting. They are doing some great stuff, so I recommend following Comfy UI. It's an interesting company to watch. So we are probably we are getting closer to the end, and I want to ask, and Hank already got into that part a bit. I want to ask, what part of your workflow has AI not improved yet, or what experiments you did that failed? Like you feel that it's not a good thing to do with AI?
Yeah, I still write really on my own. I don't like how AI does writing for me. I think for me, writing is definitely a way for me to think through things. So if I have AI write for me, it would try to maybe do a better job, but it wouldn't help me think through the ideas I'm having on concepts. And I think for me, when I write things out, things change. I change my mind, I change the idea. I think that's incredibly valuable. So if I lose that, it's a disadvantage for me. The other one would be image generation, which to me is problematic because I used to work as an artist. I did photography for a while as well. And to me, image generation is kind of a line that I find really hard crossing. I recently started using it just for like a hackathon project, just to see like how far it's gotten, but I don't feel comfortable generating it for like LinkedIn posts, for example. Like I always do it in my head with these all the time. So that's been my personal line, but again, a lot of this to me is more about, it's not really about AI necessarily. It is, but it's more about what am I okay with morally, and also from a sustainability standpoint, and how comfortable am I with it? Because a lot of times I definitely feel the pressure that everyone else is feeling, especially because I live on LinkedIn. Like I spend so much time on this platform. I consume so much content. I consume 5 times the content that people do, and it is undeniable that there's an incredible amount of money and pressure that's coming down on designers, from hiring managers, from leadership, non-designers, from design tooling companies to use these AI tools. If you don't use it, you will not have a job. You will not be employed in design in however many years. And to me, it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy where even if that's not really true, I do believe hiring managers fall into this and start to hire this way. So nowadays, in every job interview, you'll hear somebody ask you, how are you using AI right now? And you're pressured to answer the question in an effective way. And it's not really fair because like I would flip the question back onto them, like, how are you using AI? And their answers are oftentimes like nonsensical. It's just like, what? Like, this make any fucking sense? But my point is that if you don't figure out some kind of infrastructure or scaffolding for how you want to use AI, it becomes very easy to kind of fall into that loop or spiral where you feel like you need to do all these things in order to succeed and to be an effective designer, which is not necessarily true right now. And I think for me, like finding that balance is super hard. So that's where I'm currently. I think I reevaluate it like every few days, and it's hard to really stand still there. You have to break your own rules constantly, and I think that sucks because I said this before. I feel like my career and my job are being held hostage in some ways by AI. And I think AI is very powerful in terms of letting me build stuff I wasn't even built 2 or 3 years ago. And I think individually it's a net positive for me. But I think from a systematic level, it's bad for designers in general. Like if I could remove AI, I'm fine. And I remember somebody else telling me, he's like, I wish we go back 3 years ago. Like during COVID times, like billions of people died. He's like, oh yeah, yeah, just yeah, forgot about that. But there was something different back then. I felt like back then I kind of felt like shit because like COVID, but I felt more positive about the field of design, and I think now I feel much more negative. And I don't think that's really fair. I don't think that's a really good thing. So.
Yeah.
So, what parts of your workflow has AI changed yet? Or where do you feel it's not good to use it at all?
Not good. I think where it didn't change the pace, judgment of the people who are selecting what not to build and what not to produce. So AI gives you the possibilities which you can choose, but designers actually that's the meaning of the stories and actually personal touch to what you produce. Because I think what was gonna be valuable next is a craftsmanship, and even on the digital level. It's a question of how you will define this craftsmanship. But in a tool we're building, first we create the prototype, nice, but it looks like any other tool, and then we really took time to craft every piece backwards. So we didn't allow this to just throw it to the market because we want to create the value and the people to see that it was a personal touch. And to your point, I was writing in Subway today. It was the ads AI. They say it's AI for work. One prompt, job done. And I think there was a very doomed message because they skipped the one which is like you fired. Yeah, but I still think we are all blending into the same common space as the engineers and designers. So we're not separated when we create the common space where we communicate through the language, nature of language, and building the meaningful products and actually the tiny tools. So it's not that huge SaaS platform which you have to rip off that 80%. You have to find your points. The question how you will do that is a different one. So that we have, you sit in a restaurant, you have the whole menu in front of you. What I like to do is just open my eyes and think what I want, and then to pick up the really can find the same. So the same with the tools. You can be overwhelmed with the numbers of that right now. Maybe it's too many, but you have to close your eyes, think what you want to build, and then ask Claude how to get there, right? And set get your own tools or build one. Like, you share.
Thank you. So, what about you, Dan?
I'll plus one on what Penny and Dima said. The writing and the imagery. While I do generate stuff with Firefly, there's a couple of iterations to try to get something nice, and especially since it's very simple to try to do something more complex. Really, it's bad generally. But Dino said reminded me of an interview that I did with Carl Koch. So Carl Koch is a design engineer at DuckDuckGo, and on Wireframe we were talking about something that he worked on. Which was in DuckDuckGo, or search engines, when you type in the name of someone famous, you'll get an image that pops up that shows, like, this is the person you're probably talking about. And in order to do that, they need to put some copyright information about where the image came from on there. And what you could do is it could be very benign, and you could just say, oh, okay, copyright this, and just leave it in Latin shipping, right? Well, what Carl did was he took 2 weeks to make the experience of looking at the copyright information animate in a nice kind of easing curve and a nice flow or whatever that actually he put on. I don't remember specifically. But he spent a lot more time doing that little moment. And, your visceral reaction to that is, well, why? Who's even looking at that? Who's even caring that the amount of time and money spent, resources spent, 2 weeks of the senior engineer's paycheck on this little thing, right? But his argument in that whole thing is that that's bringing the human part in, and that's the thing that the AI can't do. Right? So the AI is derivative. We've already kind of mentioned that in a couple of different ways here, right? Where, if you're generating stuff with AI, you're probably going to get the same stuff over and over again, and all that's it's just derivative, just using what's done before. So what I've found is the thing that is most difficult for me is a lot of the stuff that I'm doing is not derivative. It is highly unique and novel things that I'm trying to do, generally speaking, that the AI is completely lost on, right? So those things make it really hard for me to use AI in some of these cases where I'm trying to create something that's wildly novel. So in the case of what Carlos was doing with Go for this particular piece, I'm sure he probably worked with AI to get it in the right spot in terms of his idea. But the feeling of what he produced, that's not something that AI can potentially generate. That feeling is a human feeling. I still continue to believe, with as much AI that they pump into what we're doing, it's things like this that will keep us together, keep us working, and making us connected as humans more than ever now before. So it's the human part that we need to, that will never be encompassed by AI, hopefully not, at least until the singularity happens. But ultimately, for what we have right now, it's that human part. So whatever human part that is, that's illustrating or writing, those human moments that are in there, that's not capturing. And admittedly, I kind of hope it's
I agree with that. I think I would call it personality as probably the most important thing for me right now. When I'm, for example, consuming some content, I love Magic the Gathering. It's a card game. I'm watching a YouTuber. He's not the best player in the world, but he has this great personality, and that's why I basically follow him. And I think that's something that's hard to copy with AI or hard to beat. So yeah, for me, it's that way. Unfortunately, we have limited time today, so we'll need to wrap up. We don't have time for questions for the audience, so I'm sorry for that, but I believe if you reach out to any one of us using LinkedIn, we'll be happy to talk. And I think we'll try to go to some bar nearby, so if you want to join us, we might try to find a place where we can hang out for a while, get a drink or whatever, water. So we'll try to find something. So thank you very much. Thank you, Hank. Thank you, Lima. Thank you, Danny. And thank you all guys for coming. Have a good night, I guess.
Speakers, please, gather around. There are a few bars just around the corner, so we can go there. And it was great to meet you and see you again soon. Yeah.
Just to do something.
You like